Hi, this is Fettah Mohamed, a Moroccan high school teacher of English. For today's session, let's start from these two activities. Yesterday, first, I did my homework. Second, I played sport. So yesterday, I did two activities. The question here is how can I put these, or how can I talk about these two activities using one sentence and with reference to this order, that this is number one and this is number two. To clarify things, we can put them on the following timeline. For example, this is now, which is the present. We have this one that is the past. And we have this one, which is the future. Okay, so when I say activity number one, so for example, this is activity number one, we are talking about yesterday, means in the past time. Then we have activity number two. Activity number one, I did my homework. This means doing homework. And activity number two, I played sport. Playing sport. Okay? So I did two activities yesterday. This means I did two activities in the past time. And of course, we have activity number one. Okay? That comes before activity number two. Or in another way, we can start with before and we say before activity number two. So we have activity number one. Right, so this is logically speaking. So one comes before two, okay? Or we can say in another way, we can say two comes, or we can say before two we have one. Or we can also use after. So we can say that two, activity number two comes after activity number one. Okay? Or we can start with after. So we say that after one, we have activity number two. So after one, we have two. And before two we have one, logically speaking. So now how can we write them? For example, we can say one. So for number one, I had done my homework. Okay, before two, I had done my homework before I played sport. I had done my homework before I played sport. Or we can use after. So we say we have two. I played sport. I played sport after I had done my homework. I had done my homework. Right, so I have one before activity number two, and or we can say that we have activity number two comes after activity number one. One thing to mention here is that when we speak about activity number one, so when we are talking about activity number one, so when we speak about activity number one, so the verb is written. So I had done means have plus verb in past participle. So this is past perfect. Okay? All the time, either in sentence number one or number two. So activity number 1 is all the time written in the past perfect. When we speak about activity number 2, so activity number 2, so we have I played sport. So the verb is written in past simple. Okay? So generally speaking, the right tense used to speak about these kind of activities, it is so-called the past perfect. So for today's session, the lesson is past perfect. So the past perfect, it is used to speak about two successive actions or activities that took place in the past. So we have activity number 1 and then activity number 2. We link between them using before or after to show order. And all the time activity number 1 is written in the past perfect and activity number 2 is written in the past simple. Okay, so to have a conclusion, for our conclusions, we can say, so when we speak about the past perfect, so the past perfect, so generally speaking, we are talking about two successive activities in the past. All the time. So when we speak about the past perfects, we have to bear in mind that we are talking about two successive activities in the past. When I say successive, it means there is order. We have activity number 1 and then activity number 2. Activity number 1 is all the time written in the past perfect. So the verb is all the time written in past perfect. But when we speak about activity number 2, so the verb is all the time written in past simple. It's like the example that we have just seen. And we use before or after. So we have 1 before 2, or we say 2 comes after 1. Just something to mention here is that we don't have only before, so we can use before, we can use when or by the time. They don't have the same meaning, but they follow the same rules. I mean, so we have, when I have before, it's like when I have when or by the time. So we have one before 2, it's like when I say by the, we have 1 by the time we have 2, so it's the same in terms of the grammatical structure of the sentence. For after, the same thing, we have other words, it's like as soon as, or we can have also because. Right, so when we have these words, they play the same role like before in terms of the grammatical structure of the sentence. So that's it. So when we speak about the past perfect, it means two successive activities in the past, because we have order. We have activity number 1 and then activity number 2. All the time, the first activity is written in the past perfect. Past perfect means had plus the verb, the main verb in past participle. Right, so this is past perfect. It's like when I talk about the verb go, so it is had gone. When I speak about the verb, for example, write, had written. Right, so this is the past perfect. So we have had plus the verb in the past participle. And activity number 2, so all the time the verb is written in the past simple. That's it. For better understanding, I check your understanding as well. So let's move to exercise. Right, so for our exercises, we have 2 exercises. We have exercise A, put the verbs between brackets in the right form. We have a list of sentences, 4 sentences, and we have verbs between brackets. So you have to read these sentences, then you have to check the keywords. It's like, for example, in sentence number 1, we have, you cooked a lot of food because you so hungry. So we have because, and as I explained before, because is like after. So I have to make sure that we have 2 activities in the past linked by because. And then I can check, for example, when I have because, it is like after, and we said that when I have after in the middle, so we have 2 comes after 1. Okay, so 2 after 1, and it plays the role of because, and that's why we have here we have cooked. So it is written in simple past because activity number 2 is all the time in the simple past, and activity number 1 is all the time in the past perfect. That's why in this case, because you and we have the verb be, it must be in the past perfect. So it is had been. Right, so we have to do the same for the rest. In terms of exercise B, we write the following sentences as suggested. So we have to write these statements, and then you have to rewrite them using these words: before, after, as soon as, and by the time. For example, sentence number 1, I watched a film and then I went to sleep. So we have the word and then, which gives order. We have 2 activities in the past. This means that this is the past perfect, and I have to know the order. So when I say and then, so this means what comes next. So when I say what comes next, so this means that this is activity number 1 and this is activity number 2. And then I have just to follow the grammatical structure when we use before at the beginning, because we said that before, so it is followed by activity number 2, and then we have 1, and we have to answer the same way. So you can stop the video, try to answer by yourself, and then you can check your answers, because I'm going to answer this exercise. Right, so for exercise number 1, you cooked a lot of food because you be so hungry. We said that we have because like after, so we have 2. When I have after in the middle, so 2 comes after 1. 2 all the time in the simple past, and 1 all the time in past perfect. So that's why we have cooked, and here we have past perfect, had past verb in past participle. Let's move to the next example. I had learned English before I go to London. So once again we have before. So before means we have 1 before 2, okay? And that's why when I say 1, so that's why here we have had learned, because had learned or learned, because the verb must be written in the past perfect for activity number 1. For activity number 2, the verb must be written in the simple past. So we have go, it is, went. That's it. Next, for number 3, when we arrived, the film started already. So I have here when, and it is used to link between 2 sentences we have in the past. When we arrived, and we said that when we have when, it's like when we have before. So when we have before in the beginning, so before number 2, we have number 1. Okay, logically speaking, before 2 we have 1. So the film, when I have 2, this means the verb in the simple past. When I have one must be in past perfect. So past perfect start had started, but I have an adverb here, so I have to put it in the middle. The film had already started. All the time when you are given an adverb, so put it between the auxiliary and the main verb. So had started becomes had already started because we have this adverb. Next, she studied a lot before she took the test. So once again we have two. So we have one before two. So that's why we have took here simple past, and here must be past perfect. Had studied. Now move quick, because when you understand the rules, so it becomes easy to answer any exercise concerning the past perfect. Just one thing that you have to check whether we have two sentences written in the, we are talking about two sentences in the past time. And something else in terms of before and after. So in some cases, some exceptions, we have before and after, they play the role of preposition. So when they are followed by verb ing or they are followed by a noun, so at that time, so we are not talking about two activities or two actions in the past. Okay? But when we have verb subjects, verb objects, and then we have another sentence subjects, verb objects, so at that time we are talking about two activities in the past. After they, so we have do the shopping, they went back, so we have after, so after we have one, after one we have two. That's why two is in simple past, and this one must be in past perfect, so had done. Next, rewrite the following sentences as suggested. I watched the film and then I went to sleep. So I watched the film, this is activity number one. I went to sleep, this is activity number two. Before two we have one, so before I went to sleep, comma, and we have activity number one, so it must be written in the past perfect. I had watched a film. Next, they entered the restaurant, then they were served. And we have after. I have the word then. So when I have then, it's like in the first case, we have and then or then is the same. So this means we have one, then we have two. And that, after one we have two. So after they had entered the restaurant, comma, they were served. Because we know that activity number one must be written in the past perfect, number two simple past, all the time. She became healthy because she stopped eating fast food. I have the word because, and we know that's because it is like after. So we have two after one. She became healthy. This is this is activity number two. She stopped eating fast food. This is number one. I have as soon as, and we know that as soon as it is like after. So after we have one, after or as soon as she had stopped eating fast food. Comma, because all the time when we put them in the beginning, so we have to divide them using comma. And then activity number two in the simple past, she became healthy. The last example, I worked in a company and then I got married. So we have and then means what comes next. This is two and this is one. And they have by the time it is like before. So by the time I have two, then we have one. By the time I got married, we have to keep it as it is because the verb in activity number two must be written in the simple past. I got married, comma, and now we have to put the verb in the past perfect. I had worked in a company. That's it. So this is how we answer exercises in the past perfect tense. So all the time I have to look for, the first thing I have to check the time of the two activities. Are we talking about two activities in the past or not? Then I have to look for the keywords. It's like because, before, after, by the time, as soon as, or after, and so on. And then I should know which one is activity number one and which one is activity number two. And then I just put it in the right tense, because activity number two must